Hey, welcome to the show. What's happening? Um, Tonight, I've been working with my buddy Justin on a lot of interesting stuff inside of Reaper. So, if you're a Reaper DAW buff, prepare to learn a few things. If you don't use Reaper, the operations of these things might be slightly different in your uh, ability to program some of this stuff on your own uh, DAW. Um, Justin has been a long time Pro Tools user. He's one of the most experienced digital audio workstation gurus that most people will ever meet. He's been running Pro Tools for as a 93 or 94, and I'll let him tell you about that a bit more. I'm going to bring Justin on right now. Go ahead and say hello. There's the man himself. Oh, maybe now you can hear him? Oh, okay. Maybe not. He's all
There we
muted in
go.
StreamYard. There we go. Yo, yo,
Hey,
yo. Hey, buddy.
hey. How's everybody going?
Um,
Doing.
so the last couple days, Justin and I want to allow you to tell a little bit of your history with regard to using DAWs. Um, you've and I'll just share a couple of brief details. Justin and I met in about 2005 or six when I was a student at Eastern Oregon University. He was a assistant. He was ultimately the professor of the class that I took for the digital audio workstation. I don't even think they were called DAWs back then. Or maybe they were. And taught me a lot about running, and we worked primarily with Pro Tools. So, Justin, maybe share a little bit of your history with regard to your experience and where you're at today.
So a very, very long story short. I was in a band once upon a time right after high school that kind of fell into kind of a cool opportunity, and that opportunity went south, as many do. And that was my first experience with Pro Tools, and that was in 94, 95. We had started hearing about what was like sound tools and whatever it had been before that. When I was shopping around for studios and things, I was hearing that's what people were using. So I was kind of aware of it before we saw it down in Atlanta. But anyway, that project fell apart, but that was the first time I got to work with Pro Tools, and I helped produce that project for my band at the time. And then I've been using Pro Tools since, off and on, consistently since 95. I've gone through I've never owned my own TDM system. I've never owned my own HD system. My at-home rigs have always been LE rigs or native rigs, but I've had access to bigger Pro Tools rigs at work and things. So, but I when I taught at Eastern at EOU, I got to work with pretty much any workstation that was available and try them all out and put them in front of students. And consistently, the one at the time that most of the students would gravitate towards with very little effort was always Pro Tools. So that's why, I kind of stuck with it at that point. But now, after many, many years, I'm kind of frustrated with some things with Avid, and have decided to start making the transition to Reaper almost completely. So,
Mm-hmm. So, just to share some details about what's happened with the Pro Tools um, agreements, and in order to use it, Avid has gone to a subscription only um, support. Is that correct,
yeah,
Justin?
as I understand it, you can no longer buy perpetual licenses. There are a few, as I understand, that are floating around online, retailers and things. But and I read a little bit of the new agreement that comes with the new Pro Tools changes, but it doesn't sound good. If you want to own a copy of Pro Tools that you can just leave running on a machine, and then maybe have another subscription for, like, the I think, like, if you wanted the top tier Pro Tools on a subscription base that you could use as you needed to use it or wanted to use it, say per project or whatever, um, you can't do that and own your own perpetual license. So you can't co-install, which is understandable, but considering it's all the same software, it's just looking at the number that it opens up with. They could solve this, but it is what it is.
Yeah. And it sounds like they have kind of gone for they're trying to make more money by forcing people to pay more in a subscription over a span of a year. Obviously, it's kind of like borrowing money or using a credit card. You buy something for a certain amount, but in the end, you pay a lot more for it if you're. Whoa, what just happened?
Far out.
On my computer. Let me. That wasn't supposed to be there. Oh, interesting. Okay, I see what happened. And so, and I'm a big fan of Pro Tools. I've used it. I was introduced to it right around the same time that Justin was. He might have a year or two on me, but I went to other software very quickly because of the expense involved in Pro Tools. Even then, I was just a poor plumber. So, having said that, my DAW of choice was Sonar X1 Producer. As my DAW, I had Cool Edit Pro. I mean, we're going way back to the software that was coming out to try and compete with Pro Tools. But even those were fairly expensive at the time if you weren't a real rich person. So Justin has, in the last couple weeks, it's been about 2 weeks now, 3 weeks maybe. I mean, you've had Reaper for a long time.
Yeah.
On your hard drive, but you've been editing and doing a lot of work inside of Pro Tools, almost all of it.
Almost exclusively.
Yeah. And so Justin's making an attempt, and being such an experienced user of digital audio workstations, pretty much put his hands on anything and make it work. I think a lot of us can. But it's been fun for me because I've been using Reaper for several years now, and Justin has taken it far deeper than I have. So what we're going to do here, I'm going to bring up a screen here, and what we're going to talk about tonight is customizing Reaper in a few different ways. But first, we're going to introduce you to what Justin has kind of set up, and I'm going to let him kind of walk you through what he's got going in his home studio. This is a home studio, mind you. So prepare to have your mind blown. So let me bring up the screen where we've got your Reaper project open, and I'd like you to kind of maybe talk about what you've got going on here.
Okay, so what I'm trying to do is my mindset with this whole move is, if I'm going to jump ship from Pro Tools, I'm going to jump ship from Pro Tools. The primary edits and functions and the ways that I go about doing things, all of those I want to keep for the most part. I'm totally open to learning new ways that Reaper can let me do things. But there are a few fundamental functions that I want to carry over. And part of what's kept me from working in Reaper more than Pro Tools is I knew that I could set it up the way that I wanted it, but I didn't know how. And I didn't have the time I wasn't prepared to, and able to just dedicate the time to digging into it and learning it. The last year or so, I've had a pretty serious ongoing mix project for a band out of Montana. And because of that, was just not willing to, dedicate more time to Reaper. And, Marshall and I have worked on, some song collaborations and things that I have, I'd say half of them I've worked in Pro Tools, and the other half I've, actually shared his Reaper sessions and worked on some things. So I'm somewhat familiar with Reaper. Um, I'm not one of those Pro Tools snobs or Reaper snobs or whatever. I don't care what it is. It just has to work and do what I want it to do. And my workflow is pretty simple. Um, there's guys that get into this, make me look like I'm blind when it comes to all this, but I like being able to tweak it and set it up the way that I've wanted to. One of the main things that I've been struggling with is I felt like the MIDI programming and controller programming in Pro Tools has been kind of inconsistent and buggy. And part of what keeps me from finishing songs that I write or start writing is I get frustrated with the MIDI programming of things like drums. And so my projects end up sitting there. And so I had picked this little AKAI MPC element up, used locally. I think I paid $20 for it. It was brand new, had all the packaging and everything. And I was like, I know I can get this set up to work as my finger drum pad. But what I've decided to do is, in addition to finally getting this figured out in Pro Tools, and making it stable with my Steven Slate drums, SSD5, and everything else that I wanted to try and use it with, finally got that figured out. But in Reaper, once Marshall showed me the actions list and the custom actions list and stuff, I started looking at some of the buttons that were already on this, besides the drum pads, and decided to basically map this out. So in addition to, where do we got to go? Right there. So can you see that? I got a tap tempo button. I've got a full level, 16 level. I've got an undo, an erase, a note repeat, a main, transport controls across the bottom. Got a mute track, a solo track over here on the corner. I gotta go backwards. There we go. Track up and down, and then a pad bank. I'm not currently using pad bank for anything. I'm using track up and down for track up and down, and I'll show you that. Mute track and solo, I'm mapping those. Transport controls, I've got records arms the entire session, the transport. That only activates if you've got a track armed to record, though. The overdub record button here next to it, I'm actually trying to set that up as a track arm, or record arm for the current selected track. But Marshall was looking at it with me a little bit earlier. I can make it work, but it only, despite the action that I pick saying it's a toggle, it only works as a momentary switch. So I got to figure that out. Stop works, play start takes the playhead back to the beginning of the project. And then I've got the tap tempo button mapped out. Full level, if I hit that, will take the current selected track. If the fader level is not currently at unity and I want to set it to unity, I've got the full level button set or mapped to do that. 16 level, I've got a plan for that. I'm hoping maybe Marshall can help me figure out. What I want to do there is set that to take all of my source tracks and automatically drop them together to minus 15 dB FS. If I've got a really loud session, I like to just pull everything down a little bit. Part of my gain staging, and I won't really get into that, but undo is undo, erase is, I don't think I'm currently using erase for anything. And then the note repeat I've got that mapped to save the project. And then the main button is my favorite now, honestly. We set the main button up so that when I hit the main button, the actions list pops up.
So what we've done over the last couple days, and you've spent a lot more time on it than I have, but we've spent quite a bit of time together getting the actions list and finding out, discovering how to make those buttons, when you push them, do what they're supposed to do, such as the play button, pushing the play button, that sort of thing. Now, there are probably a lot of folks that are really unaware of the actions list and the extensions, the SWS extensions that are available for Reaper. A lot of the newer users probably don't or haven't gone there yet, maybe in fear of the complexity. Now, I also want to say that Justin is his system and the way he mixes compared to myself is a very complex routing. His mixes are far deeper than a lot of what I will do. So I just want to preface his presentation tonight by saying that. So what I'd like to ask folks to do is if dialogue is used while we're talking tonight, that you go ahead and ask a question, and I'll do my best to field them and answer them for you if words are used that you don't understand or you don't understand where we're at inside of Reaper. So what we're going to do real quick, I'm going to pull up our screen with Justin's Reaper setup. This is what his Reaper DAW looks like at his home. Mine looks far different from this. He's kind of modeled this in a. Do you remember what is the name of this theme?
This is the TI or TW Imperial.
Yeah, the Imperial. That was it.
Here it is. Hang on. WT Imperial.
Okay. So
yeah,
Justin has Justin has downloaded this theme for his setup at home, so it's more fluid and it looks very, I think, similar to Pro Tools in a lot of ways. Am I correct in that assumption?
Not really. Not at all. Actually,
Okay.
I had tried a theme that there's a pretty popular Pro Tools mimicking theme, and what I found was that all of the really, really, really cool shit that I like to use and that I rely on in a Pro Tools session was just eye candy. Like a lot of the group tools and things across the top menu were basically like a screenshot with no buttons or overlays or anything. There was no functionality of anything. It was almost like it was just a screen share grab and then some functions overlaid, which is understandable because, if you're going to kind of reverse engineer that, you don't want to be recreating all the graphics. So why not just take the graphics from the program? But there was too much that I found that just wasn't there and functional. And I was like, okay, if I'm going to jump ship, am I going to take the time to dig through educating myself on this theme that fakes Pro Tools and then find out that it still won't do what I want it to do? Or do I just find a theme that I like the layout of visually, functionally, and more importantly, because I'm set up with things the way I am, I've got a 24-inch touchscreen in front of me, kind of like, think of it, I'm using it like a small Raven, like a Slate Raven, just smaller right in front of me. So I wanted a theme that would map to a 1080p screen and give me the key functions and button layouts and things that I want, but at a size and scale resolution wise that they work with my meat hooks on a 24-inch screen. And this Imperial theme solved all of those. In the beginning, if you remember, I was really excited about it, and then I couldn't figure out how to get folder themes or folder tracks to work. And I didn't think that it had folder tracks. And then after about a week of digging, I figured out that they're there. You just have to drag, you do the normal drag thing that you do in Reaper. It just, the interface doesn't show you that folder tracks are active until you have started dragging things over to other tracks.
I'm going to go just to your screen real quick so folks can see exactly what we're up to. Yeah. So now let's stop right there. Let's talk about folders real quick that Reaper offers. Now, I realize there's been 1,000 videos out there probably about this, but maybe some of you haven't checked them out yet. So, a folder is ultimately a bus track, or let's just call it a master bus for some tracks that are adjacent to it or underneath it on his track layout that you can see there. He's got, I don't know, 16 or 20, 24 tracks or something like that. If he created a folder track up, let's say at track 3, he inserted a folder track there. You would be able to, at that point, that third channel would become um, a master bus for the rest of the tracks.
Marshall, why don't I do that?
Yeah.
So I just created this track 25. I'm going to drag this to the top. And so that's there. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that at this level, as far as Reaper, I'm a noob. I'm completely green. So that new track that I just created, I actually want to call that, let's say I want a drums. Let's pretend I got some drum tracks here. So let's say I want the next 8 tracks. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that'd take me to 9. So if I want those to go into my drums folder as a folder track, am I correct, Marshall, that I just select those and drag them up to the drums track?
Drag them into drag them on top of that track. And that
I don't think that
did not do.
That did not work.
Yep.
A new track.
We're going to learn.
Order. Let's see if I need to.
It's what's interesting is that with this layout, with the layout that Justin has, I'm gonna go ahead and share my basically the same screen with y'all, so you can see mine, and I'll show you how.
Oh, there we go.
How I do this. Oh, did you get?
I thought I just had it.
So you got? No. Yeah, I cannot remember. Do you have to stretch the tracks out wider? Is there, and then a folder icon will appear? Because as I recall, there was a folder icon that showed up.
Yeah,
it was just really small.
Yeah, I mean, it was.
And again,
this is part of the stuff that's driven me nuts. Is some of this stuff I can do, and then some of it I can't make work consistently. So I don't know if it's operator error or if it's a bug. I can say now that I don't think there's a lot going on bug-wise in Reaper. I think it's just a matter of I need to get my mindset into working this way.
Yeah,
and I like this.
Becomes...
Somebody's landing at the hospital with a helicopter. I have done this. I've done this.
Yeah, there was a drag function. Yeah.
So,
well, let me.
We know it's there. I just have to figure out where to pull it up or how it.
Let me share my screen with folks. I'll show you what happens here in Reaper. I've got some stuff for session wire, some tracks here, these red tracks, and I'm going to insert a new track. I just have to right click, insert a new track. And over here on the left side of the screen, I've got this little icon that's a folder. It's kind of small, but it's there, and I know right where it is. And if I click on that, now this is the master bus for these tracks. In fact, let me undo. I'm going to undo that. You got it. Okay.
Sorry.
So let me switch back to. Let's see. Let me switch the. Restream back to. Sorry, folks. So here we are with Justin's.
So if I pay attention to these icons, like this on 7, track is last track in folder. Compacts the view of all tracks in this folder.
Right.
Track is last track in folder. So I've got it all gummed up and mixed around right now. But if there was a way to easily automatically clear all folder arrangements or anything, that would be great. Do you know of one?
That I do not. And this again has to do with the theme that you're using.
Right.
Yeah. So you know, and I'm going to go back to my.
I'll just go into my here. I'll pull this down so everyone can see. This is something else that is cool that I like about Reaper that other DAWs have, but Pro Tools does not, is the undo history. So I can go in here to where I started screwing around with the track order, add new track. I'm going to go back here, double click that, and that took me back to where I was before I started screwing around with everything. And you'll notice the track layouts are different, and that little glowing blue or green and amber square button in the top corner of each track is gone now. So like you said, it's theme dependent. It's a little more cumbersome than the stock Reaper theme for sure, but I think once I get the hang of it, it'll be cool.
Right. Well, and I'm going to share. I'm going to go ahead and share my my screen with everybody. And here's what mine is. And again, all I have to do is go here and click on this little icon, and you'll notice that the tracks are indented, and this track is a folder.
Right.
I go down to this third one down, and it's not a folder. It's nothing. It's a child track to the parent track, and twice. Now my master bus. This track is the last track in this master bus, and or the not master but parent track. Reaper calls it the parent track. So it's a really pretty simple function, and what it does is it allows you to control all of the instruments that you might have here with one fader, or you could mute them all with one fader. You want to solo all of your guitars. Let's just say these are guitar tracks. You can solo them. If you want to mute them, you can mute them. So that's the simplicity of using folders inside of Reaper if you want to have your parent track with a list of child tracks underneath it. Again, right here, I've got some synths, and I think if I arm this track, yeah, my piano works. So what we'll do, I'm going to insert a new track right here, and I'm going to make that, I'm going to call that a synth master or synth parent, sorry. And my track turns blue. Another function of Reaper that's really super cool is that you can automate the colors by word choice. So I've got that as a parent track, and I turned this last synth track into the last child track in that string of synthesizers. And so now that doesn't work. And if I want to arm both of these tracks and mute them, gone. So it's just that simple to create a bus inside of Reaper. And that's given that this is a very stock layout with regard to Reaper. This is basically a stock Reaper theme that I have customized to make it my own kind of thing. You'll notice down here I've got a Guitar Master track, and I've got several guitar tracks underneath that. And beyond that, I've got a drum bus down here with Easy Drummer 2 on it right now. It allows me to simply mix and mute the master volume of these tracks. Very, very simple move. If I don't want that to be a parent track anymore, click on it. Now it's not. And it's not involved in this. This is the last track in this bus. So it's really a simple way to keep your tracks organized in Reaper, of course. Get back to the
Marshall, I got a question for you about that.
yes.
That I was kind of looking at some stuff last night on my setup. Um, in regards to the automatic track color codes,
Uh-huh.
if I change the name, I know that I can set that up so that as I create a new track, the moment I name it, it's naming sensitive, and it'll look for keywords and stuff. Do you have control over whether or not that color code changes
If you take
only
you
when a
have a
new
guitar
track is
track,
created versus if my snare drum track is blue by default and I rename it to the piano, and I want and can I set it up
right,
to where anytime I rename a track, the color follows the renaming?
right. Let's find out. I have my guitar set to be green. I have a guitar track right here. I'll make it nice and big. And I'm gonna. Oh, it's called Goodyears. But let's take a track that's untitled. I'm gonna unarm that one to record. I'm gonna call it guitar and enter. Okay,
Nice.
so now it
Okay.
turns green. Very simple. Now, if I title it synth, it should turn blue, and it does.
Okay.
So it does follow the color coding. Now, here's something interesting. If I called it synth guitar, because let's just say you have a synthesizer that sounds a little bit like a guitar. This I'm not sure of what's going to happen
This
here,
this
and
was
it
my
turns
next
green.
question. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so what if you call it guitar synth? Which is it a matter of which word is first?
Right.
Does that
And I
dictate
don't
the
know.
color priority?
It may have something to do. I
No.
believe. Let's call it. Well, let me look at my extensions here. I'm going to show you where that is. Uh, see auto color icon layout, so you can see that the guitar is set to be this specific color. And if you want to change, I can show you real quick. You can set it the color right here. It's very simple to do. I'm wondering, and forgive me, I kind of got unfocused here, but let's add a rule, and we're going to call it Apple. So what I'm going for is seeing if the colors are determined by alphabetical order of the words that are typed in the sentence. I'm not sure how Reaper has it set up. So if I type Apple, that should be, let's find an interesting color. We'll call it that. Okay. So if I call it Apple, now it turns to that beautiful orange color. If I call it guitar Apple, it goes back to green. So I'm not 100% certain how that's dictated. Guitar is the first rule that I made. Of course, I'm a guitar player, so I'm not quite certain.
Can you drag those? Can you drag those and reorganize the order of the rules?
Yes. So let's put guitar below Apple. Okay.
Right. Does that, with guitar not being at the top now, does the green not take priority?
Let's see. Let's type guitar Apple again and see if the color changes. Doesn't. And I'm not certain why one particular name would dominate over the other. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's just something I was curious about and trying to understand. You know how my mind wanders.
Right. But the cool customizability of Reaper is really super cool. You've got to spend some time with it for sure. So now let's get into what we're messing with today. Oops, get this screen over here. We were working with programming your MIDI controller
Yep.
to control certain things inside of Reaper, and I want to bring up your. Let's do this. Should have your. All right, so let's just say, for instance, you wanted your play button on, and we've already done this, but we'll walk people through this. If you do have a MIDI controller or a control surface that you want to make a certain specific key have a certain function, this happens in the actions list inside of Reaper, which is up at the top of your window. And you have your MIDI controller handy, so that I call it a MIDI controller, control surface. So if you want to make the play button, when you push the play button on the control surface MIDI controller, we can assign that. And you'll notice what he's doing here is he's using the filter to find this action that he's looking for, to play or stop. And right there, the play control. And he's going to
So
remove
we
the
had
one that he
already done that,
assigned.
so I'm going to delete that,
Right.
and then so
Yeah.
we go to I want my play button to trigger my transport play, so I select transport play, come down here, I hit add, and then you want to press the button that you want to map to. Hit OK.
Done. Now, if you push that button on your transport, the DAW goes to play.
Yep.
Now, this type of what we discovered was that in attempting to do this, and again, the customizability of Reaper allows Justin to do this very easily with a very few mouse clicks, and there's probably shortcuts that are even faster. So we were able to program his MIDI controller to do multiple different things. That why don't we go ahead and let them see? You can kind of describe the buttons that you're pushing with respect to solo. We've got the mute button. Didn't we get the mute button also going from your MIDI controller? I don't remember all of the settings that we had on that, but
sorry, I was sharing the YouTube link for the stream on my Facebook, so we can maybe try and get a few more folks in here.
Sure.
Okay. So you wanted me to talk about how we had mapped the other functions. Were you primarily looking at, I heard you mention mute and track, or did you want me to kind of go through everything?
Well, let's go to your mixer. Can we go to your mixer window and see the mixer view? Right here. All right. So the two windows that are available in Reaper. Go ahead and solo track 9 without touching your mouse. Boom.
Okay.
Go ahead and unsolo that track.
Okay.
And go ahead and mute it. Boom, muted. Go ahead and unmute it. Now let's do the same thing. Let's see some other functions that we had on that. I don't recall all of the settings.
So we had one thing that we had done that I really wanted to make sure of was that when if there's something that's been changed, let's say fader level wise, let's say. Well, let me back up a second. So I've also got the track forward and track back, track up and down, select buttons set up. Not, depending on what I'm doing with the other hand at the moment, I might be doing a volume fade or something, or, I might be riding a threshold level or something on a compressor and want to reach up and jump to a new track to select a new track, I can do that multiple ways. The track up and down button was there, so I mapped it. So, but what's cool is like, so track one, if I want to make sure that if I want to set that to Unity, I just hit my full level button that I've got mapped on the AKAI controller, and it jumps to that. I can go to the next track, full track, and so on and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So I have the option, I
button.
can do it, but it's not something that it's not like you're going to be doing all 16 or 24 or whatever, you're not going to be doing this to
Sure.
all of your tracks, but from time to time you're doing something and you're focused on one tool, but needing to make an adjustment somewhere else. And this it just gives you another avenue to get from point A to point B, or from point A to Q the shortest way possible, kind of a thing. It's
Right.
just another way to interact.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to do, I wanted to be able to reset selected track to 0 to Unity.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, if you recall, what was driving me nuts though was
Right.
I had to manually select each track that I wanted to activate, or if I wanted to actively be manipulating that track, I had to click on it to highlight it like this. What I'm used
You
to
had to do
working with,
2 mouse clicks versus 1
yeah,
ultimately for
so
that track to be selected.
and so the way it's working now is not the way it had been working. And Marshall, do you remember what that? Let's get back in here, and I want to show everybody
Options.
what that setting was. Do you remember? It was in your keyboard or mouse
Options, preferences,
modifiers?
mouse. Yep.
Mouse. Okay, this button here, for me, with a control surface or multiple control options, makes or breaks whether or not I can use this. Just because I'm,
Mm-hmm.
not that it means I think I'm special or anything, but I forget things a lot, and I get lost, and I get a little overwhelmed with some of my own mixes from time to time, if I'm honest. And
Sure.
things like this help me keep track of where I'm at. So with this disabled, what you find is, see how these are still selecting when I move a fader? If I hit apply, now I can move faders, or I can touch other, I can do other things on other tracks, and those tracks that I'm manipulating do not become the active track unless I
They don't
click on
become
the track.
highlighted.
What I want is I want this active so that the second I touch anything on any channel strip, boom, I click the solo button, it automatically highlights that track. I go over here, I grab this pan. The second I move it, it activates and selects and highlights that track.
Yep. And the key in this is that you're handed mixes with 16 drum tracks, let's just say, and that would be a small mix that you're used to dealing with. If you go in and make an adjustment to an EQ on a track, or you adjust a volume on that track, and you go to do something else, and you hit an undo function or whatever, you can potentially be adjusting settings on an alternate track that you're totally unaware of.
Well,
oh crud, where was I? What did I just do? So it's a really neat
and it would
option.
be cool. Anybody who's done this, comment in the comments. Anyone that's honest that does audio production will admit that at some point, probably multiple times, you have been turning a knob on something, thinking that it was sounding different, and whatever you were working with was bypassed or not even routed, and what you were doing over here had no effect on what was going on over there. And it takes you a couple of minutes to realize that, yeah, you got a brain fart going somewhere, And so this is a way that I like when I'm actually using a tactile, workstation controller. I have to, in most digital mixing consoles, that's a standard feature. Like I told you earlier, that's been a normal digital console function forever, is touch to select, Because think about it on a live production console, we have typically, a producer section or a primary channel, strip section that
Yes.
controls every signal input, output, bus, whatever that we select. Well, in a live setting, I don't want to have something I need to deal with immediately take me 6 clicks or menu swipes or whatever to
Right.
get to. If I want to reach up and grab, an EQ sweep or something, on your vocal track, your vocal channel, and have that channel's current settings pop up on that primary channel strip window, or the producer section or whatever. Um, I want that to happen the second I touch that fader or that pan
Yeah.
knob or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just faster, and it helps me when I get lost in my own head to remember where the hell I was.
Right. Right. Well, I think we've shared a pretty good amount of information. We've been on for almost an hour now, Justin. I think we should probably call it a night. And I want to thank everybody for being here. Timothy and Ivan, it's great to see you guys again tonight. Hopefully, you've learned something that might be helpful to you. In Reaper, I realize that it doesn't seem like either of you guys are using Reaper terribly much, or maybe have a little bit of experience with it. Go ahead.
I noticed Timothy made a comment here. He said, I would like a separate separate mixer monitor and
Yes.
arranging monitor. And
Yeah.
since he brought it up, I know we weren't going to go there, but I'm going to answer his question.
Right.
Timothy, I actually am set up with 4 monitors. I have my 24-inch touchscreen that's right in front of me on my desk, as like I said, basically like a small version of what a Slate Raven would be. Directly up above that, at eye level, I have a 42-inch LCD that's my primary monitor. And then directly to my left, at arm's reach, little over arm's reach, I have a vertical monitor, and I have the same thing on the right side. And what I typically do is I keep my mix window on my 24-inch touch most of the time when I'm doing, mix adjustments, or if I just need to bump something or whatever. But I'll have my primary.
You're talking about the window that we're seeing here
Yeah.
in a big view. That's on his 24-inch touch
screen.
Yeah.
And then on my primary screen, my big 42-inch, I'll run my tracks window so that I can see everything. And then I use the 2 side vertical monitors as virtual effects racks, basically. So as I pull up different effects inserts or insert effects for different tracks and buses and whatever, the things that I like to have readily available, if I've got an LA2A emulation, I want it right there on that screen so I can see what it's doing, The only thing that would be cooler, in my opinion, than what I've got set up right now is if the 2 monitors on the side were touch. And that may happen at some point. But yes, I agree with you 100%. Having multiple monitors and having the option to have everything split is the way I work. For this stream purpose, we opted to just minimize it and stick with the one screen here. So,
yeah. Well, and we'll have a lot more info to come. We're going to be doing these on a pretty regular basis. We're going to try and keep them down to around an hour. We didn't really script a whole lot tonight, but we'll be working more on that. So hang in there. As Justin gets going with Reaper, we're going to move forward with doing more live streams to help you guys with what we've learned in Reaper. And I got to tell you, in the last couple of days I've worked with Justin, I've learned a lot. So I want to thank you all for being here. And I want to wish you all a happy night. Have a great evening. And we will see you all. And tomorrow I will be doing a Welcome to the Bench at about 11:30 in the morning tomorrow. So if you guys are available tomorrow, 11:30 a.m. West Coast, and I'll be working on a 1953. You heard that right, a 1953 Bandmaster amplifier that I get to bring back to life. So it's kind of cool. So you get to see an old amplifier tomorrow, and it ain't Uncle Doug.
Very cool.
But subscribe to his channel. Peace, y'all. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.